Hi, I'm Bill Patton with 720 Degree Coaching, and this is an episode of USA Tennis Coach. This will be the most well-rehearsed episode in the history of any podcasting I've ever done. I'm not going to explain what that means, but we're going to dive right in. And this episode is about getting people off to a good start. So either you're booting up your coaching for the first time or you need a quick reboot because things are not going so well. So new coaches, struggling coaches, coaches in a rut, listen up because we're going to have some really valuable stuff for you today. All right. So we introducing the co-host or the guest or whatever you want to call them. We have David Smith, the legendary author of, there it is right there, Tennis Mastery, along with Coaching Mastery, and soon to be what? Tell us a little bit about you, Dave.
Well, most people know me through the two books and through my senior editor articles from Tennis One, but also with a new book coming out called High School Coaching Mastery, which really will bring the nuts and bolts of all the things both on the court and off the court that coaches really will want to bring passion to their program and make it not only enjoyable for them, but obviously produce successful and very championship-minded teams.
Terrific. And then Mike is currently serving with the Florida High School Tennis Coaches Association. So tell us a little bit more about you and what's your position there. What are you doing with that?
Yeah, I'm the tennis chair for the Florida Athletic Coaches Association, and I'm on the board for the Florida High School Tennis Association. Lots of associations, and then have heavy involvement with USPTA, PTR, USTA. And then I coach a high school team here in Florida.
Okay, awesome. And I am formerly a high school coach, and that's news to these guys. So I just actually let a position go recently because I realized I really need to be busy doing other stuff, especially stuff like this. So Mike and I met originally in 2015, and that was a lot of fun. So anyway, so here's what we're going to do. Where do we start with when a coach is first getting out there with their team? What are some of the most important things that they need to know to get the team off to the best start? Dave?
Well, definitely, if you're going to have a great season, you've got to be prepared before the season begins. So, I mean, if you're not planning anything prior to the first practice and you don't have either experience that allows you to do that, because I don't write anything down. I've been doing this for 45 years, so I don't need to. But at the same time, I know I've planned even in my mind what we're going to be doing. But communication, we have a parent meeting coming up on Wednesday next week. We have our first practice. So the kids already know through handouts, through what expectations are, through communicative things that I want them to already know how they need to be cleared. They need to have their paperwork in. They need to have paid their participation fees, et cetera, et cetera. So those are number one. Coaches better have all of that in place so that when that first practice hits, you're not wasting a second of time having to go over ancillary things that already should have been taken care of prior to season. That would be
great.
My advice.
All right, great. So, hey, Mike, is it possible to completely program out chaos?
No, of course not. But you can do the best you can because you never know when chaos is going to hit. It's just like the insurance commercials. You never know when mayhem's going to strike. So the best thing is you have conflict is when reality does not meet expectations. So conflict is when reality does not meet expectations. So the best thing you can do is, like what Dave said, is to get the communication there, get the ground level set, get the foundation of what you're going to do this season set. And then that way the expectations are a little bit going to match up more with what the reality is going to be.
Yeah, and to add to that, one thing I like to do is pretty much plan out the first 3 days of practice down to the minute, and knowing that probably my day one plan won't go off completely as planned. And based on what I see on day one, day two's plan will probably be changed. So, but just to have it there mapped out, I mean, because you can take that and you can go, wow, these kids are really picking up on what I'm doing quickly, so let's go faster. But that's not usually how it goes. So have more plans than you can possibly achieve. So then you can go, all right, I'm going to X this out and put this into the next day. This one they're struggling with, we need to go regress a little bit more. But I would also say don't put extra pressure on yourself to achieve all the grandiose plans that you have. All right, now, Dave, let's say you're in California and you're already in week 2 and it's not going well, right? You're a new coach, you came in without a plan, right? How can you quickly shift that?
Well, obviously, if you've let it get to that point, then there needs to be a coming to Jesus kind of moment with the team, and an element of saying, guys, we're not being effective, we're not being efficient, we're not moving forward, and that we're not reaching our potential. So, now you've got to do what you should have done 2-3 weeks ago, and that is plan out. I mean, what's interesting is my practice every day is relatively the same. I mean, the drills change, but the progression of every practice is essentially the same. There is a level of expectation there that the kids know exactly what is expected, what we'll be doing at this point, what we're doing as a warm-up, who's going to challenge, who's going to be drilling.
That's great. That's great. I want to piggyback on that really quick.
Good.
So this is a great thing to do, to have a template. So the daily template is largely the same. So you have a certain warm-up that you do, right? Don't do a different warm-up every day for 2 weeks. Do the same warm-up every day for 2 weeks. Let the kids kind of get into the flow of that, right? And then, and you might have a warm-up that lasts 5, 10, 15 minutes. Oh, Mike, right. You're blowing me up there. All right. You don't, right. Have a warm-up that lasts 5, 10, 15 minutes, whatever works for you. And then, what's the next thing? I mean, it could be serves and returns, right? It could be a conditioning thing, right? And then, then try to block out 15 to 20 minute blocks of time and program in breaks. So if you have a 2-hour practice, then you really need to have 2 water breaks. One could be a full 5 minutes and one could be a couple of minutes. And then just one more thing on that too is if you're on a water break and you're seeing that the kids are particularly well behaved, but also getting along really well, and you can see that there's some team bonding going on, don't obey the watch. You let them have another minute or 2, because those kind of bonding experiences will help you in the future. On the other hand, don't let them get into total social thing. And when that break is over, it's over, and you get right back to work and you go, hey, look, I program in break time so that you can talk. So now it's time not to talk so much. Mike, what do you got on that?
Yeah, I think you just have to manage and not be rigid as far as the schedule. Like, oh, okay, well, it's 15 after, we have to do this, and it's 10 after, now we have to do this. I think going with the flow, and with experience, you're going to get that feeling of, okay, well, this is working. Let's go a little bit longer with this. This isn't working. Let's cut this off and adjust it and adapt it a little bit there. And I think that just comes with time, with coaching, but don't be afraid to go with the flow on that. And I think that's what a lot of new coaches may have these plans, and they're very, okay, I want to do A, B, and C, but they don't know how to get out of it, or they don't know how to extend it and get the most.
Okay, and I like what you said there, and so this isn't meant as criticism, but I just have a caveat that sometimes we need to let the kids struggle some. So it's not working. You have to be careful with that, because is it not working or are they not working, right? So sometimes depending on the kid might go, hey, coach, this drill sucks. I'm like, no, it doesn't. You do. So the drills don't work, people do. So this is a tried and true drill. You're struggling with it. Let's figure out how we can get you to not struggle with it. But then to go a little shade finer, sometimes you're meeting with abject failure. They don't have the skills needed to execute what you're acting to execute. So then you need to go, all right, let's pull back and let's teach what they need to know in order to do this.
So let me add some stuff here, because I think one of the things we're getting away from is, if we're going to develop a high school team for the long-term success, there's got to be certain parameters of how you train your beginner kids, because let's face it, all high school coaches are faced with the same dilemma. You have your high-level kids, your middle-level kids, and your raw beginners. You're going to get X number of raw beginners every season. So one of the things that I have always designed is that when we start our season, while the upper kids are playing either challenges, because we have to set our ladder early. So the upper kids are doing their Thunder 5 and then challenging. Well, I'm working with our beginners, anywhere between 15 to 25 beginners on our drill course. So then there's a distinctive pattern for the first 2-3 weeks where I'm working with these beginners and we're progressing to these advanced drills with the beginner, because they're learning the same stuff that our advanced kids do. Then we bring down our advanced kids, and then the beginners move into a challenge system where they're trying to apply what they're learning in it. And that's the balance of every team. You've got to teach advanced foundation strokes, then give them the opportunity to put those strokes into match or competitive play. And they're going to fail. Then they come back and they work those strokes again. Then they go back into competition. They start seeing themselves, and I see this for every year I've coached, they start applying those strokes. They start being more and more successful with advanced strokes. So that's one thing to remember. And then as we get 3/4 of the way through the season, we start to get ready for state, then we're focusing on those varsity kids on high level, high intensity drills, as well as conditioning and the progressions that go with that. And the more lower level kids are now playing competitive singles and doubles.
Okay, so that answers the question, how important are your beginners and how can you get your beginners playing tennis in under 2 weeks? Now, Dave's got his advanced foundation thing, which I'm beginning to experiment with, which is a lot of fun. But another way you can go to get a kid ready in 2 weeks to play, and then Mike, I'm going to let you answer this in a second too. I mean, if a kid has no experience, we might do downs, ups, flip-flops, very short rallies over the net, right? And then when they can rally 10 in a row from up close, then we move them back to about 3/4 court, rally 10 in a row. Teach them a basic serve, boop, right? If they can serve by just tapping the ball in and playing forehands, you can move pretty far and hit a forehand. So if you teach them how to serve and how to rally with their forehand at least, then you can buy yourself some time to stick a backhand on them later, which is the opposite of the advanced tennis foundation. But you can decide where you want to start. All right, so Mike, beginner to player ASAP, what do you do?
Well, first of all, I give them green balls.
You do what? Oh, green balls, yeah.
Green balls. When they're trying to rally with each other, take away the yellow balls. They're not going to have success. They're not going to, and use the balls, and instead of a level, use them as a training tool. So the ball's not going to bounce as high. It's not going to bounce as fast. So they're going to really be able to try to maintain a rally. And it's a big difference, because if you take a beginner and you give them a green ball, then they can rally, say, 15, 20 times in a row. They're not wasting time picking up balls and they're hitting more shots.
Yeah, that's terrific. So yeah, and those I'm sure most everybody knows what the green dot balls are, but if you aren't familiar with those, you can go to netgeneration.com and find out all about that. So if you don't know what green dot balls are, that's fine. Netgeneration.com is going to give you a lot of resources to get started in that way. All right, now when it comes to maintaining discipline and establishing, the organization and the order of things. How do you start with that, Dave, to kind of put it? I mean, you've already done your communication, but now you're having your little first blips of bad behavior. How do you handle those first moments?
I've got to be honest. It's either because of the way we organize things, because of the way we are communicative with our players and parents early on. I'll be very honest. I've worked with 3,500 players, and it is extraordinarily rare to have a player actually become a problem. The peer pressure of because we establish a culture of high-level tennis and high-level expectations, players who are not there for the same reason everyone else is, they're gonna feel it from their teammates. They're not gonna feel it much from me. I've never had to sit a kid down. I've never had to tell a kid to go home. I've never had to tell a kid you're done. So I think one of the things that limits that necessity is that culture within the framework of your team and developing an expectation. And everyone on my team wants to win state. They want to win the highest level thing that they can achieve. And so, again, the drills are fast-paced enough, and there's a contrast of what we do differently. We teach a high-level advanced slice serve to every beginner. We teach drop feeds by the thousands. Every player starts with, their serve, their volley, their ground stroke. So the drills themselves sort of limit that discipline.
Got it. Okay, so here's what I think a good takeaway from that is. If you stick with it and you become the master, just by your presence, you sort of create this order. I mean, but as a young coach, first time on the court, haven't really been coaching before, it's a lot more difficult than that. So
absolutely, I agree.
So I think for me, I began to do a better job with my players when I realized the difference between what my mental expectations were of how kids would behave on the court and my actual convictions that I'm in charge of making that happen on a daily basis. So, I was just expecting them to behave, and then it didn't happen. And and then later when I learned about progressive discipline where, okay, say a kid's acting up, then, a little nonverbal communication like, hey.
Yep.
And then saying thank you when they're quiet. And then if you see so that first step is like a little nonverbal thing. Next step is take them aside and have them a little talk with them so they're not getting negative attention in front of everybody, right? Because the kids who want the negative attention, they'll just keep that going. And then then something serious if it keeps going, like, okay, you're sitting out of this game. Just, hey, go pick up balls or, something, do something else. You're not in this one. And that's a consequence of your continuing behavior problems. Then if it continues, I will call home. I'll call their parent and say, hey, little Stevie, I had a little nonverbal with them. I pulled him aside. We talked. It continued. I pulled him out of a drill. What do you want to do? Can you give me some tips on how to deal with your son or daughter? Right. And so, but parents don't want a knee-jerk reaction to a one-time thing. If you go, okay, now we're on step 4, mom and dad. And I love it when they go, put Stevie on the phone right now. Right.
Yep. That's a good point.
And you get a quick read. Okay. So Mike, what do you got for us on that, on kind of the discipline aspect?
Yeah, I think everything needs to be handled by a case-by-case basis. Situationals are situational. So you just have to kind of know the kid, and if it gets to be a problem, then you got to talk to the parents, and hopefully that nips in the bud. And if not, then look for the things. But like what Dave said, there's not a lot of problem players. The outside of the couple that talk way too much. and interrupt your coaching. But other than that, I mean, and that's just, behavioral. So unless you get, one thing I do in our practices is if you do anything that would get you coded in a match, profanity, smashing rackets, hitting balls over the fence, stuff like that, unacceptable. And that's laid out in the first practice. So it's just those expectations and reality, they've got to meet up. And then most of the kids I coach are pretty good kids. So, and you're dealing with, let's be honest here, we're dealing with tennis players. And most tennis players are high IQ, high behavioral, good players. They're not, you don't have to worry much about discipline with these overall broad.
Yeah. I got to qualify that because, I come from the birthplace of the free speech movement where Mario Savio was having code violations on top of a cop car, So, no, certain regions, and I mean, because inner city kids are not quite as polite as the kids that you're working with. And so, I think, realize what's the culture of the place where you are and use appropriate responses in that way. Because I can guarantee you the culture of the school I just got done working at is night and day different than what you guys are describing. So anyway, all right, now when it comes to making things fun for the kids, what are some of the things that you do to make it fun? Because the number one reason why kids are quitting sports right now is because it stops being fun. All right, Mike, why don't you go? Yeah, go ahead.
First of all, we got to find out what fun is. And fun is different to so many people. Some people think video games are fun. Some people think that cooking is fun. I don't think cooking's fun. That's why I'm
gardening.
Gardening, yeah. I don't want to be out there digging in the dirt. So fun is very, very different to a lot of people. But one thing's for certain is if you like doing it, it probably means that you're pretty good at whatever it is that you find fun. And I think instant success in tennis is very hard. So we need to put players in situations to make them enjoy the game. Especially, and I'm talking about like the beginner players, the intermediate and the advanced players, they're on a different level and it's a different type of thing for them. Because if you're getting an introductory player or a very beginner player, you have to kind of put them in a situation to succeed, to kind of put that hook in their mouth to say, oh, this is fun, I like it. Because if you don't do that, if you can't get that hook in their mouth, you don't have to worry about them anymore because they're going to do something else.
Okay, I got one thing really quick. I end every practice with a game. And that is true every single practice, except if there's been some horrific problem that happened in practice. So, and we just didn't have enough time left for a game. But I really try to leave the kids with a fun, large group game that leaves them laughing at the end and having a good time.
Well, I'll jump in on that because I agree in context, but I'm going to go piggyback on Mike because defining fun, you can create fun within a basic drill. Because if they're coming close to hitting the shot that you're like, you sit there as a coach and go, John, that was an amazing forehand down the line. You got it to curve the way we wanted. That was you came within inches of the cone. If we have a target out there, whatever. You just hit that. How did that feel? Again, you're getting them to interact with the shot, and that's a fun element that lasts a lifetime as opposed to the hit and giggle or the game and giggle type of situation, which I have no problem with. But our drills are so active that they are starting to see themselves hit the shots that they see their advanced teammates are hitting. And I instill, and that goes back to that culture. I tell my beginners, you will be an advanced player. You see the names up on those banners of state champions that we produce, your name's going to go up there if you want it to be up there. So now they have a different element of fun in terms of I'm getting closer and closer to that goal of becoming a great player.
Yeah.
And every player on our team, we believe will become a great player. So they're all moving forward with that belief and that culture of saying, I'm getting better every single day. And so I think that comes from the coach as well as success.
Improvement is fun, absolutely. And I'm glad you said game and giggle, because that would be a mistake. And all my games are really intense games, so there's a lot of running. And so the funny thing is, they don't realize that the game is actually conditioning. Right. Because the game's so fun. So, hey, if you're watching this and you want some PDFs of my top 3 games that I play on a regular basis, I will gladly send those out to you. All right, now, Mike's got to go in about 10 minutes here. So we're going to start with the segment where we say, do this, don't do that. All right, Mike, do this or don't do that.
So do this. Have fun with your players. Don't do this. Be the hard-nosed, just first day of practice, kind of come in harder, but don't just be a hard ass and just ruin everyone's day and have a bad attitude and never smile. Have some fun out there and let your players enjoy being around you too, because you have 3 months to be around these kids. Yeah.
Do this. Set the tone every day that there's something important going to be getting done today, and defend that. So, and start pretty strict, but then as you trust them and they trust you, you can give them a little more slack. All right, Dave?
Yeah, you can definitely encourage player production and make it fun. And I've seen coaches across the board. We've all seen them. The hard-nosed coach who just tries to draw out great play without encouragement, demanding. But I would say the thing that every coach should do is never be afraid to encourage your players to dream big, to say, this is our goal. I've seen so many teams that in California, Arizona, and now in Utah, where I'm at now, that coaches are like, well, we'll never be as good as this team or that team or this team. That, going back to the discipline, that's going to encourage poor discipline, because no longer do the kids have a goal. So
got it.
Never be afraid to say to your team, we are going to win state.
Awesome. All right. Now we're in the super concise mode of answers. Anyway.
You're asking me to give you a
I'm working on it. Okay. I'm working really hard here. Okay, no, my turn. All right. All right. Oh, I lost my train of thought there.
Sorry.
Okay. So, do this. What is I had a good do this. Mike, help me out here. Do this. Quick.
Do this. Have your players play fast-paced games for conditioning, and don't, at the end of practice, just make them run, because whenever you're doing that, you're just working on endurance. You're not working on speed. You're not working on agility at the end of practice. If you're going to work on speed and agility, you need to do it at the beginning of practice.
Okay, do this. Plan your season so that you get the bulk of your conditioning done before you get into the meat of your season. If you can periodize your schedule well, then you've done all the work pretty much early on, and then your team will be conditioned and ready for those matches that you really want to win, and then you have a fresh team at the end for the playoffs. Okay? Let's get some don't do this. Don't do this.
Don't cancel a lesson 20 minutes before you're supposed to have it.
Oh, man. Yes.
So I now know to leave right away. Okay, we're good.
Oh, okay. Okay. And that's an interesting thing. I mean, don't cancel practice. In fact, I tell my teams, hey, in NorCal it rains, and we know that it rains some. So the first day that it rains, we will be in a classroom and we will have a chalk talk.
Yep.
So if it rains a ton, if it rains every day for 2 weeks, we're not going to have 10 indoor practices, but we will have a chalk talk. All right. You got another thing, Mike?
Let me piggyback on this real quick. The other day we had a rain out, and I sent all the I want to say varsity players, like the top 5 players, I went ahead and sent them home. I had the rest of the 20 other players that aren't in the top 5. We talked about, I just said open question session. You know, you ask me any question that you had, and we did this for about 45 minutes. Nick cleared up and answered so many things, and the hardest thing was to get the first person to ask a question. And as soon as that first person asked the question, they just kept on rolling, and we got so much accomplished without even hitting a ball, because now they have the understanding and they got a little bit more knowledge of what they're looking for and what they're trying to do, not just in formations, but strategy and tactical. I mean, it was really
Got
good.
it. All right,
There's a lot of things you can do.
Dave, don't do this.
I'll write on that. Don't cancel practice ever. I look at rainy days with, even if it's just for a half hour or an hour, I tell my kids, we're improving. Coaches that send their kids home are not improving. But I do like Mike's mention of creating a vehicle, an opportunity to maybe use those rainy days as a means to say, okay, let's have an open discussion, open roundtable talk with maybe get just the varsity together or something there. But there's so many drills in a gym, in a hallway, in a classroom, in an open area covered. I used to, in Arizona, we didn't have big open areas, so we had these covered hallways that were outdoors. We still did all of our drills on rainy days in those hallways or those covered walkways. So
okay,
never cancel, ever.
Okay, so rainy day activities. So if I'm going to go inside, then we're going to talk about the mental game of tennis. We'll find one aspect about the mental game of tennis. So that's when I will teach the 16-second cure.
Yep,
right.
I do the same thing.
I will teach, some singles and doubles strategy. I will tell a story about something that happened with a team in the past that they can learn from, and then some other little, and then we'll take some questions from them, and then we play tennis Jeopardy. So at the end, last 20 minutes, I write. We have like 3 to 5 categories, and it's doubles trouble. I'm single, help me. Stupid stuff coach says, and they love to go. They love to say, "I'll take stupid stuff coach says for 1,000." That's a highlight, right? And then here's the hilarious part. They have to know and repeat back things I say. They think the joke's on me. All right, Mike, what else on rainy days?
Rainy days, definitely you can work on agility, balance, coordination, speed, strength. Just having them stand on one foot and try to touch a cone in front and cone to the side and touch the cone back. Just working on, building those stabilizers, ankle stabilizers, core work, doing not just crunches, but glute bridges and scissors and flutter kicks and all that stuff. That really helps the players, and you get time. It doesn't take a lot of space to do it. If you have enough room to be in the room, then you can do this stuff.
Awesome. That's great. Yeah. So get out all your brutal, and then core exercises. Toss some med balls around.
Yeah.
Get that core rotation going. All right. A little bit more. So let's go in a different direction. All right. More do this, don't do that. Okay, don't succumb to the whims of, hey coach, can we play this fun game, right? So the answer to any whim that a teenager has for you should be no, right? No. All right. So a kid comes to me, hey coach, can we right? And I go, no. All right, now here's the thing. I heard what you said, and here's what I might do. I'm going to plan that in at some point, but we're not gonna do it right now. So know that when you come to me with an idea, my answer will be no, right? But it can happen sometime if it fits the plan, right?
Right.
And you know, and a lot of times they're like, "Hey, coach, we learned this really stupid game in camp that has absolutely no use for anything," right? And I'm like, "Well, is it fun?" And they go, "Yeah," and I'm like, "Well, we're not going to do it because you already told me." Because now that I've seen what it is, it serves no function at all. So do you see how we just don't do stupid stuff here? Okay, Mike, don't do this, don't do that.
Do experiment. Try different things. Don't be afraid to take risks and chances, because if you never try something, then you can't say that it worked or it failed. And then also, don't be afraid to revisit that later on. So say something failed, try it a couple years later with different people, because you never know what's going to work with the groups that you have.
My kids always hate it when I come back from a conference.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I'm immediately bringing some new stuff, and they're like, "But wait a minute, this is different than what we did last week." Yeah, sorry. Hey, yeah, I'm always learning and growing, so sorry. Okay, do this, don't do that, Dave.
Well, one of the big things is if you're traveling to your matches, please, coaches, make sure you bring ample balls for your kids to practice with. I have never seen how many times a coach will come out to our school for a match. "Hey, have you got some warm-up balls for us?" I actually have, I kid you not, a box of the deadest balls I have. And I said,
That's
"Sure,
sinister.
here's a whole box of balls. In fact, you can keep these balls because we have thousands of balls." So I give them the worst balls. I'm like, "Here you go." And we always take a cart or 4 baskets of ball hoppers of good, our best balls to go to every school when we play, because number one, I'm never going to ever ask a coach for balls. Number two, I know the drills I want to do prior to a match that get my kids ready. And worst thing you can do, I've had coaches spend all their time with their top 2 players. Their other kids never see them. And I've actually had kids and parents from other schools say, "Our coach doesn't spend any time with us." And I'll tell you, you want to ruin the team, as from a coaching standpoint, show those kids you don't care about them. And whether it's your doubles teams or whether it's your JV or your local beginners, if you don't show a care for them, they will quickly become your most problematic kid.
Okay, do this. Realize that no matter how much you try to give equal attention to all your kids, somebody is going to feel like you didn't.
Yeah,
Just realize that.
No,
just realize that. So,
yeah.
And then, and it's really easy to gravitate towards the ones who are more outgoing, right? And then and if you have an assistant, try to get an assistant who's different from you significantly, so they're reaching maybe some kids that you can't reach. I mean, I always like to have kind of an introvert assistant coach because they can reach out better to the introverted kids on the team. They can relate better, right?
Good point.
I mean, if you're a male coach, it's good to have a female assistant, right? And vice versa, right? Mike, what do you got? Do this, don't do that.
Ask about their day. As they're coming into practice and they're coming in and, little small talk, get to know them personally, like get to know what they like, what their favorite classes are, that little bit of interest. I remember when I went to college, we did an orientation and you had to ask 3 things to every person you met in the room. You had to ask, what their name was, where they're from, and what their major was. And you can do this with these kids. You don't have to be those 3 questions, but how was their day? What your favorite subject was? Something that gets them excited about being around. And then high fives. Energy. You're the coach. You have to supply the energy. So if you're having a downtime with your team, and it's just the mood's just bad, well, flip on the music. Turn the music on. Have them do something stupid. Have them laugh at themselves. And then turn that mood around and get the excitement going again.
Yes, and I want to piggyback on that one because something pretty dramatic happened when I discovered that two of my girls wanted to go to UC Berkeley, and that's at that particular school we were at. Not a lot of kids went to Berkeley, so and they both got accepted. And so when I knew that they had this really high academic achievement goal, then I fostered that with them, and we also kind of put that to work on the tennis court. I'm like, okay, well, you want to learn excellence? Here we go. I mean, so that type of mindset is really important. And then the second part of what Mike said was have a sense of humor, right? So the kids are going to come at you with some humor sometimes, so be ready. Dave, what do you got?
Yeah, the having coachisms, sayings like you talked about earlier. I have my favorite ones. We'll work on colors and numbers next week. If some kid does something silly, in fact, one of my girls gave me a shirt last year that says we'll work on colors and numbers next week, because I use that, or I don't get mad, I get even if I get hit by a ball in a drill or something. Things like that. I mean, the kids, like you said, the funny things that we say as coaches that the kids latch onto. And that's what they'll remember years later. And the other thing that Mike mentioned that we do is we have all of our top 15 or 20 boys or girls draw a name of the next 20 kids, and they sit down and ask them 3 questions that they have to find out about that player. So now the upper level kids are being interactive with the lower level kids. So the lower level kids are no longer, wow, those kids are way up there, they never talk to us. No, and we also do some of our toss and block drills where we pair the high level kid with the beginner, because we want those beginners to be involved.
Okay. Now here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to share one more thing, but then I'm going to ask you to share some of your coachisms. All right. Okay. So do this. Have your captains go way out of their way to engage with everybody on the team and not sort of hold themselves aloof. All right, now here's a coachism. Here's one of my coachisms. It's never too early to panic. Okay, Mike, coachism.
Kid trips. I like to point up to the sky and say, "Up is that way."
Okay, Dave.
My favorite is probably you can't come from behind and win unless you're behind. We've come from behind so many times. None of our players believe they're ever out of the match. And if they're behind, it's like, well, hey, you're behind. You can't come back and win unless you're behind. So get with it. And they usually do. So
no, that's great belief there. I also build your point cross court. And get creative on short balls. Get creative on inside balls or short balls, but build your point cross court.
Yep.
Right there.
I'll add to that from a double standpoint. The high ball, drill your net opponent. We actually have an inside joke that if you poach on a volley and drive it and hit the person in the leg, you get an ice cream, because that's the best shot you can choose if you've got a high put away shot rather than hitting a sharp angle or hitting it deep.
We used to use Wilson balls, and one of my kids said, "Hey, coach, can we give him a Wilson tattoo?"
Yeah.
So give him a Wilson tattoo, right? Hey, where do you want it? All right, Mike, coachism.
Going on that, I say if you get hit, it's your own fault. It's your job to hit the ball and not let the ball hit you. So if you get hit, don't be mad at them for hitting you. Be mad because you didn't get your racket in the way of the ball.
All right. So another doubles one, down the middle solves the riddle.
Yep. There you go.
If you don't know where to hit, go low down the middle or lob all the way to the baseline over the net person.
Yep.
Now, I always say, but I never say lob the net person, because then where does that lob go? It goes right to their overhead. So I would say lob to the baseline over the net person.
That's a good.
Yeah.
Good
Otherwise they put it right on there. All right. More coachisms.
One
thing.
Go ahead, Mike.
Go ahead, Dave.
Well, I was going to say the thing about, we always say challenge the overhead. A lob goes up, how many kids or how many players will watch the lob and then evaluate whether they can get it? By that time, it's too late. So we always teach the players, challenge the lob immediately. So every lob that goes up, we teach our players, you can hit an overhead off that, even if it lands on the baseline, because we're challenging that overhead. We're getting kids to learn that they have the footwork, the speed, they can travel to that ball and put that ball away. But if they evaluate it, look at it too long, it's too late.
Okay, I'm going to shift gears for a second. I'm going to go back to do this, all right? So do this. After your team is sort of in a flow where their serves and their returns are looking okay and their forehands and the backhands and the volleys are looking fine, make sure you have a really good lob and overhead practice.
Yep.
One really good lob and overhead practice can dramatically improve their confidence with both shots. And if you did that twice in a season, you might not even have to practice it again.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So coachisms or do this, don't do that. What do you want?
Consistency comes with confidence.
Okay. So yeah, I mean, that's great. Be confident.
I'll add to that. Let me add something to that, because I think it also goes the other way. Consistency builds confidence. So when a player starts getting their serve in consistently and getting the ball in cross court, they start naturally hitting the ball harder without even trying, because confidence is bred through that consistency. When they hit too hard too soon and miss a shot, what's their recourse? They're going to decelerate, they're going to dink, they're going to push, they're going to play safe. So I like both ways that could be interpreted.
Okay, this is both a do this and a coachism. Do I get extra points for that?
You get it.
No.
Both start.
Okay, it's a split decision there. All right. Anyway, so do this. Learn a mantra or create your own mantra, but our mantra goes like this. Today, confidence is our biggest weapon. Today, confidence is my biggest weapon. I will give 100% effort, enjoy the competition, show myself strong and wise, and learn from every match. I get 65% of my first serves in play, my feet in position for every shot, and continually pressure my opponent. I love a tough match. So we say that as a team together before the match. And there's a lot of skepticism from the kids about what does it do, but I see them improve in all of these areas because they said it.
Yep. Well, they believe it. If you start that culture of belief, and all it takes is one time for a girl or a boy to come from behind or do something, then you just say, there you go. And then the belief starts to snowball. I'll give you one of mine, Bill, that I really love, and I call it the crystal ball mentality. And I tell my players, if you had a crystal ball that says you're going to fall behind 5-0, but the crystal ball, which works, so say it's a real crystal ball, but the crystal ball says you're going to win 7-5. Would you be worried at love 5? And the kids are like, no, because I already know I'm going to win. The crystal ball tells me I'm going to win. And I said, then you need to play every match as if that crystal ball says you're going to come from behind or you're going to do this or this or this. If the minute you panic, the minute you feel you've lost, you're going to lose. But if you show belief, you can come back.
All right, I want to put on my rookie coach hat for a second because we're putting out a lot of stuff that could sound like platitudes, right?
Yep.
But Mike, I'm a brand new coach. How is it that I can have this ironclad belief in myself that I can make this happen? It's my first year on court.
Well, here's the thing. You got to fake it till you make it, baby. You know it. If you go in there doubting yourself, if you're a first-year head coach and you go in there doubting yourself, these kids are going to sniff that out and they're going to walk up and down you. you have to have the confidence, like you know what you're doing, even if you don't know anything at all. You just have to fake it till you make it. That's the biggest tip.
I think, yeah, you should probably listen to Michael Jackson's Bad for like 1,000 times to get yourself ready. So, all right. So, Mike, a couple of years ago, I was in Florida with you guys. Thanks for having me out. And I was talking to a guy, and I was like, hey, how you doing? How long you been coaching? You know, tell me your story. And he's like, oh, it's my second year, and I'm worried about being discovered as a fraud. And I'm like, oh, wow, that sounds really hard. I'm 30 years in, and I still haven't been discovered. So, I mean, I think there's a universal feeling that all coaches, I think, have, that they want to be better than they are. They're trying to be better, and they don't really want to be exposed for not being everything they wish they could be. So join the club.
Well, I believe, Bill, there's a lot of resources there that you don't have to necessarily fake it, although there is a truth to that, because how you behave with your players is either confident or nervousness. And you can't, like Mike said, you can't show fear. You can't show a sense of uncertainty. And you've got to say to your kids, this is going to work. Believe me. Believe me.
Well, you know, I think it's actually probably a good idea if you're brand new to coaching, not to pretend that you know everything. I think it's probably better to go, hey, look, kids, you know, I'm here for you, and I'm learning on the fly. Let's work on this together. You know, I'm going to do my very best for you to plan the best practices and execute everything I possibly can for you. So, yeah, just work with me.
Yeah, I think that's a good approach.
I'm probably going to make a mistake. I bet you I will. You know?
Well, and how many of us still go to conferences to learn something new? I mean, we go to pick up something that picks our game, or not our game, but our coaching game up a notch. And so we're still always learning, and I don't think you should hide that, but being able to go in there, like Mike was saying, and just be confident that you're bringing the best stuff that you currently know to the table.
Yeah. All right. And that speaks to the coach in a rut. So if you're feeling like you're in a rut, like Mike said earlier, go to a workshop, go to a coach's workshop, read, you know, The Art of Coaching High School Tennis, get his, you know, Dave's book, you know, get some fresh material so you can try some stuff out. One thing that's been awesome about this is people who've been coaching for 15, 20 years put it in the reviews that they've done a certain thing for many years because it was sort of conventional wisdom, and then they realized that there was a better way. Yep. And, you know, and so open yourselves up to the better way, and, you know, and think, you know, reflect on what you're doing. Is it effective? Is it really what you want to do? Does it make you happy? Does it make the kids happy? You know, and then, you know, don't be afraid to make a shift towards what's going to work. All right. So what else is vital for us to cover for a newish coach getting started? Mike, you're closer to the beginning than the end.
Oh, Jesus. Yeah, sort of. I think the thing is we just have to build confidence within players. The amount of time that we have between the first practice to the first match to the end of the season, there's a lot going on there. And to try to really develop a player in that amount of time is a very difficult task. So I wouldn't say really work on, you know, the tactical aspects or the technical aspects so much, but more maybe some overall global gameplay strategies, and then just the confidence behind that. You know, I always say that the next ball you hit is your best opportunity to get better.
Awesome. And I want to piggyback on that one too. So some people's seasons are 10 weeks, some have 12, some, because they're really successful, play 15 weeks, that is still a really short amount of time to do a whole lot of massive changes in people's techniques, So I generally tell people, hey, during that time, find your player's biggest weakness and work on that, and their biggest strength, and help them utilize their biggest strength in a new way. And they can improve dramatically if they can reduce errors, say, on their backhand, and if they can learn a different way to spin their forehand or to place it tactically in a different position, or hit a shot combination that's new to them. That's manageable.
So, Bill, let me pick up on that. Sometimes a new coach will have veteran players, and those veteran players play 10 months out of the year with their own private coach that isn't the high school coach. At that point, the high school coach is a supplementary coach. Coach, so they should be maybe talking with the main coach on what is that player working on, and have that clear line of communications there, and overall foster that relationship between the permanent coach, the primary coach, and the high school coach, because that's where a lot of friction meets, is because the high school coach wants to take credit for everything that this player has done, when really the player trains 10 months out of the year with the private coach, if not the entire year round, and so it's just the private coach during the season.
And that's an interesting thing, because a lot of times there's a lot of water under the bridge, and there's some bad relationships from the past. And I would say do your best to mend those. And it's really interesting what a simple thank you can do. And I know that there have been people in the past who, I met them, they rubbed me wrong. I wasn't sure if they liked me or whatever. And so then we didn't really talk. And then I just found out later that actually they were neutral. I just met them when they were having a bad day.
Yeah.
So, so always try to understand people and create as much positivity as you can. On the other hand, if there's a brick wall there, don't beat your head against it.
Yeah. I'll add a couple of things to that too, Bill, on the things to do. If you get a chance as a high school coach, go out and watch your kids play a USTA tournament if possible. Show an interest, show an outside interest beyond the high school team. I try to do this all the time. I care about my kids, so I want to see them in that element of competition. They're more likely to enter more tournaments knowing I care. And one of the things that one of my players figured out is I spend about 1,400 hours over the course of 4 years with each of my players. So even though I'm like Mike, I probably have maybe a quarter of my team that take lessons outside of my program. And I'm a former teaching pro of some magnitude. So it's not like I'm a nobody coach that doesn't know anything about tennis, but I also encourage all my kids to take private lessons when they can, if they can, monetarily, financially, if they can do that. Because I can't do private lessons with all 55 of my girls and 40 of my boys. But that care of showing that you want to see them play outside of the season or outside of a tournament goes so far into those kids recognizing that you care about them, and their parents recognize it. That goes a long way. And talking to the pro, like Mike said, or like you said, if I've got a couple pros here that I'll go up and chat with them. Hey, love what your kids are doing. I love what you're working with this kid, and build them up. I don't care if they're above you or below you in terms of experience. You build those coaches and those pros up and make them feel just as important. They will respect you in the long run.
Yeah, and I'll give you a little story on that. I had this kid who came to me, and they had come from a middle school tennis program, and the first thing the kid wanted to do was run down the other coach, because presumably he had taken a really big step up, because now he's with Bill Patton, right? And I put him in his place. I'm like, hey, you know what? You should. you're here because of that coach, and you really need to show some gratitude for what they provided for you, because I'm thankful for them, and they're different from me. I have different skills than they have, but they did something for you. And one thing you have to get clear in your head is, we don't run down any tennis coaches anywhere. Even if I don't like them and don't like what they do, I'm not going to speak ill of them.
Yep. Well put. Well put.
Thank you. So, all right. Anything more essential that we need to share with newish or struggling coaches? Mike, you were going to say something?
Yeah, one thing I've noticed about Dave and you and myself is we're all pretty positive people. You know, I think we all subscribe to the growth mindset rather than fixed mindset. And if you don't know what that is, go look it up. Go Google it. I'm not going to explain it here. But I think it's really important. Oh, no, the photo fell. To have that growth mindset and, you know, not thinking about, oh, we can't do it because we're here, but thinking about what can we do to get up to the top.
Agreed. That is a great point. Goes back to when I was mentioning that never shortchange the potential of your player and your team, ever.
You see what I'm doing here?
There it is.
So, yeah, absolutely. All right. So now it feels like we've given an awful lot, and probably 99% of people have tuned out by now. So is there something we're missing, or should we put a bow on it here?
I think we're good.
Okay. So, so from this talk, what are 1, 2, or 3 points that you'd like to drive home, Mike?
Well, one thing that I think Dave said was, you know, working on colors and numbers next week. If we don't, you know, consider some, you know, I like that quote, but in all honesty, you know, everything, you know, we've talked to Dave and I've talked to you guys, especially online, and we may have a different idea on how to do this or how to do that. But when it comes to coaching, I think we're all pretty much on the same page as far as have a clear message. Manage your conflicts by setting the reality, and make it fun for your players. I think those 3 things, having, you know, really driving it home will really work well.
Okay, so I maybe I can find this quote really quick, but this is a quote from Mark Messier, who was one of the greatest hockey players of all time, played alongside Gretzky and whatnot. Coaching really is an individual philosophy. So if there's going to be leadership, it's going to be because of you. Your philosophy is going to be. Oh, and then wait, here's another one. Helene D. Gale. I don't even know who this person is, but I stole the quote. A big part of leadership is just being comfortable with the fact that some decisions really are only yours. So lead your program. Take these resources, these thoughts, and lead your program with confidence.
Yeah. I'll close with one statement that my kids gave me on a hat that said, my players signed a hat that said, a good coach can change a game, a great coach can change a life. And I take that very seriously.
That is awesome. All right. Hey, thanks for watching, everybody. And then make sure that you like the video and subscribe to the channel and share it with all your friends. And, you know, and find if your state doesn't have a state coaches association, find a neighboring state that does, or go to Florida, come to California, go to Texas. I mean, each of those states has really good coaching workshop opportunities. If you want to find a coaching something in California, I can help you with that. Mike is your contact for Florida, and then the Texas High School Coaches Association is amazing there in Texas. So anyway,
Bill, you and I are going to be in Alabama.
Yes.
Yep.
So Mike and I have already met in person, and we'll be in Alabama in November. So come on down to Birmingham, where they love the governor.
Turn it up.
In Birmingham, they love the governor. All right. So take care, everybody. Thanks for coming out, guys. Bye, Mike.
See you guys. Thank you.
Thanks, Bill. Thanks, Mike.